Hi, Leather Rokk here. Today I'd like to talk about septum piercings. You obviously see that I have mine. I have had my nose pierced for 16 years now, so I think I know a thing or two about the subject. And I have been hearing a lot of misinformation about nose rings lately, and I thought maybe I would clarify some things based on my personal experience. Now, some people say that during their healing process, they had a lot of pain. And while I realize that your mileage may vary, I was a little bit surprised because and keep in mind, I'm not a professional piercer, but there is a special spot that they call the sweet spot, which is not really the cartilage. It's skin just lower than the cartilage, but not absolutely here. And if the piercer gets it in the absolute right place, there should not be any pain at all. I can tell you that even though I had the tiniest little bit of trepidation before getting it done, because kids were telling me, I had mine done in San Francisco, okay? The street kids were telling me, oh, I feel like you get punched in the nose or something. I did not feel any pain whatsoever, and I got it done clean and sober. I did not have any problems with it. There was like 3 drops of blood. No problem at all. Now, when I got pierced, I did not get pierced in this kind of piercing like you see here. I got pierced in a captive bead ring, which is a totally circular ring. Now, I got a bunch of things out so that I wouldn't have to be digging for them, but of course the one kind of piercing I didn't get was the original captive bead ring. I did not, by the way, change that out until about 3 years ago. When I broke my hand, this finger is kind of still wonky. When I had to get surgery to get the pins and the screws and all the fancy $6,000 worth of surgery that had to be done to reconstruct this finger, I had to take all my all piercings out because with surgery, there's an electric current that runs through the body, and there is a slight chance of electrocution if you have metal in you, so that's why I had to take it out. And when I got new jewelry, which first I got Bioplast, which is a plasticky substance that, by the way, you can go through with surgery. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Bioplast is a substance that is used in medical things. It can be put inside the body. And see this green thing? I have different Bioplast things here that when I want a pop of color, I will use. And Bioplast also is good when you're going through security because when you're wanded, it won't react. And I'm probably losing my train of thought here. But when I started, great thing about getting my surgery was that all of a sudden, no longer being stuck with just that almost impossible to remove ring. At least it was impossible to remove until I learned how to remove it. But when you are able to have the variety of getting any kind of jewelry you want, it's quite fun. It's quite refreshing. And it's nice to be able to have things that you can change. Now, some people say that they have a hard time changing the balls in these things. I don't find it to be all that difficult to do. Now, you can see what I'm doing right now. I took it out. I didn't have any problems, and my vision is pretty crappy. Now, you might notice that even now, oh yeah, I was pierced in the 14 gauge, and I haven't changed that because I'm not the kind of person who would want to stretch my holes or anything. I'm quite happy with the gauge that I got pierced in. Many people actually get pierced with 16 gauges, some even with 18 gauges, but I'm really surprised with the 18 gauge because that is very, very thin, and I would think if you were pierced with something too thin, it could be yanked out too easily. But one thing that you might want to keep in mind with piercings, now the gauge is the gauge, but there is another measurement that you should be aware of, that it's not just the thickness of the metal, which is what they mean by the gauge, but there are measurements, and you would know this if you're buying piercing jewelry, that you deal with. It's called the diameter, which is if you if I had a ruler, imagine I had a ruler, you would want to measure the piercing at the widest part. And these measurements are a good idea to be aware of because you'll find different sizes look different on different body parts and different people. Now I'm going to show you as an example. You saw that horseshoe, which actually is not even a proper term. They're curved barbells, but they're commonly called horseshoes. You can see what this looks like, what I just took out, and you can see, I'm going to show you two others, and they're all of these that I'm about to show you are 14 gauges. That's what I take, but they all have quite different looks. Now, I'm going to show you the middle size one, and now I'm using my screen as a mirror here. See how fast I was able to do that? And I know I'm missing a bead here. I took some things out in advance to make this filming easier. Okay, note what this looks like on my nose here. Okay, now I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put this little cute little thing in. Now this, because it's so small, this is going to be harder for me to just feel up in here and do it. But I think I'm getting, see? Very good. Okay. Now these things feel, this one really small here. When I originally got pierced with my CBR, it was approximately this size. And smaller piercings can have more of a discrete profile. But I think that different sizes, a person can look good on all kinds of different sizes as long as you keep with the gauge that you were pierced with, even though some people, like I said, will stretch them out. Now, another thing that you might want to consider is if you decide to get a septum clicker. They are very beautiful to look at. I admire them. I have a few myself. Now, if you have a deviated septum, they're not going to look as good on you, especially if they have ornamentation and things. I will show you why. You want to see what a deviated septum looks like? You see this? Now, my piercer who pierced me with the CBR, I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with that. I mean, as a matter of fact, I actually bought the jewelry before I got it pierced. I met this couple who were jewelry designers in San Francisco, in Golden Gate Park, as a matter of fact. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And so I bought the jewelry before I went to the piercer because I saw something that I thought was beautiful. And I also liked the energies of the people who made the jewelry. I got that first. The piercer put it in an autoclave, even though it was in a bag, because you want to make sure that anything that touches your body that you're going to be pierced with, you want to make sure it's sterile. Now, if a person with a deviated septum, like myself, has a septum clicker, let me show you what it's going to look like. Okay, stick it in. You heard me click it. Now, what do you see? You see how it looks crooked like this? It's not going to be totally, and even if it's straight now, it's going to end up being crooked. So all those fancy clickers you see with all the jewels and stuff, or say the bar goes like this and it goes like this, if your septum is deviated like mine, your septum clicker is going to be crooked and it's never going to hang exactly perfect. So that's one thing, it's a bummer. Another thing with these clickers, sometimes they're going to be a little bit hard to remove because they'll be kind of stuck and you might make yourself a little bit sore when you're taking it out. Now, if you just recently got a piercing, the last thing you want to do is change your jewelry. I wouldn't change mine out for at least a year. Now, when I got mine pierced, I kept it in for a full 12, almost 13 years before I had to have them taken out. I even endured 2 home invasion robberies in Los Angeles where the robber tried to get me to take it out. And at the time, well, first of all, my attitude was, I got this piercing, I'll be damned if I'm going to let somebody take it out. Number two, I didn't want to go home for Christmas that year and have my father see me without my nose ring, because I didn't want to give my dad the satisfaction. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you like something and you have a parent that doesn't like it, you probably might not want to acquiesce to them because you want what you want, especially if the child, is well over 21, so they shouldn't be telling you what to do anyway. But do keep in mind that septum clickers probably won't look perfect on you if your septum is deviated. As a matter of fact, I've heard that some people with deviated septums are not necessarily suitable candidates for this kind of piercing. I don't know that I believe that, but again, I'm not a professional. Now, let me see, there's some other things that I wanted to mention. Oh, another thing about septum clickers. Most, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but most septum clickers, the piece that goes in your nose is kind of on the narrow side, and not everybody's noses are the same shape, depending on your nationality, your genetic makeup and something. If you are a person with a flatter fore nose here, and your nose is like this, if your clicker is only this size and the bar is only, say, 1/3 of an inch to not quite 1/2 of an inch, but your nose is wider, the ring is not going to fit, and if you try to force it, you'll hurt yourself. So you do want to keep in mind the shape of your body. That also can make things problematic when you are using mail order or the internet to buy piercing jewelry, which I'll admit I do, because I don't want to necessarily spend 15 or 20 bucks to buy something when I can get it for much less price online, even though you could argue the fact that maybe I'm not getting decent quality, and you really should care about what you're putting in your body. But do be aware of the sizes of your jewelry, and certain things there could be, excuse me, more leeway with, like for instance, how long something dangles. There's lots of variations. Like I put interesting things in, see just what I didn't want to do here. Oh, don't want to drop things on the ground. I'm losing my train of thought here. Well, the bottom line is, do be aware of what size your body parts are that you're getting pierced, so that things fit properly. Oh yeah, and when you're changing your jewelry, it's kind of good not to do it over an open drain. And I'm trying to think of if there's any interesting questions that I often get from people who really don't know much about body piercings. Yes, you can blow your nose. I don't know what the only problem that I had, and this was only kind of recently, is that there have been a couple of times when I didn't realize that a ball, I'm talking about my horseshoe rings here, there have been a couple of times when I didn't realize that a ball was loose, and there have been times when I blew my nose and I lost a few balls. There have been a couple of times when all of a sudden I realized that my ring was missing. I was home, fortunately, and I was very happy to find a couple of days later that it was in my bed or something. Generally speaking, if your balls are twisted tight enough, that should not be a problem. You will probably find that you will be drawn to certain aesthetics and you will like certain styles more than others. I've put some interesting things in just for the heck of it. For instance, and I was hoping that I was going to be able to show you, but I don't want to keep on going off frame to look for this. I got, and these were totally irresistible, what I'm pretty sure were supposed to be eyebrow rings, and they had points instead of balls on the end. They had long points, and sometimes I will stick them in my nose. It gives kind of almost like who's that guy from Addams Family? Gomez? Real skinny mustache. But, I mean, piercing should be fun. Some people say that maybe you should, when you get a piercing, you should find a piece of jewelry that you love and just stick it in because A navel ring is one thing that you can change much more easily, and I love my belly rings because I like to pick a ring that goes with my outfit, and I like to wear a lot of bare midriffs, especially in the summertime. But with the nose ring, oh, it really depends on you. I like to have a variety, but sometimes I'm feeling a little too lazy to switch them out. Or if I don't realize till it's the last minute, I'm going to a club, I'm thinking, oh, I would like to put something in. But sometimes you're actually in a hurry and it's just not going to happen. So I would recommend that if you want to change it out, do it like early enough in the day so that if you have problems twisting the ball or if you have problems finding the hole, which after a while, I would think it would be like when you have an earring that you can just put it in. It gets easier. It really does. And just when you get new piercings in, please let it heal. Give yourself time to heal. Don't touch yourself with dirty hands. Don't use rubbing alcohol during the healing process. Actually, they usually recommend a saline solution. I was given H2 Ocean, but you can also use saline spray. Just make sure that it is sterile saline solution, because that way it won't allow the problem with rubbing alcohol is it can actually cause skin to kind of adhere to the ring, and it could actually make the healing process take longer, and you don't want to do that. Now, my piercing has been an absolute joy for me. I feel weird that I'm talking about that when I don't have something in right now, so let me stick something back in. I have totally loved it. I feel the aesthetic is very appealing. And interestingly enough, I've had less sinus issues, less colds and things since having it in. I don't know if it's because of the pressure points. The body has a meridian, and depending on what is touched, you can have health benefits through touching certain parts of the body. And I suspect that a properly done septum piercing might have that ability, because I don't have nearly the colds and the sinus issues that I used to have before I got it done. And as a side note, when I got my belly piercing, that seems to help me to stay thinner, maybe because of the psychological thing of knowing that you have jewelry there and you want to show it off, and you can only show it off if your midriff is bare. Therefore, you're not going to eat too much. Therefore, you're going to stay trim. I don't know. Maybe it's just a psychological thing. Anyway, I hope I mentioned everything that I wanted to mention about septum piercings. Oh yeah, some people say that one of the other good things about septum piercings is they like to stick things up like for work and stuff. And as you can see, that's just what I did here. I never really did that. First of all, I don't think I would be interested in working a job where I couldn't express myself. Second of all, since it's been 15, 16 years now, I could take this out for a day and it won't close up. New piercings, obviously, you don't want to do that, but I would not stick it up if I wanted to hide it. If you really want to hide a septum piercing, after it's had its initial healing period, what I would do is I would just go and get a retainer. And they can be made of surgical steel. They can be made of this bioplast. They can also be made of glass. And you probably want to go with a higher quality on a retainer just because it's going all the way up in there. So I think that's something that I would invest in, especially if you had a corporate job or something where you could not totally express yourself in that manner. Okay, I hope this was helpful to you, anybody who is maybe curious about getting a septum piercing. If you like these videos, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification thingy. And please give this video a thumbs up if it helped you in any way. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.